I am gonna, and I do that because I do like to share it in the Capitalize Your Best group later on. And every now and then, if I have a 5-second wit or wisdom, I might cut it up and put it on social media. So maybe I can get 5 seconds of wisdom for you guys today. But let me tell you where I want us to head. I try to make these Monday monthly seminars super, super practical. And that's why I go with the titles like I do. And so typically what happens is I will do a presentation probably for about the first half. And then we'll just kind of take questions and go back and forth. I am going to ask you guys all in a minute to introduce yourselves, but I don't do that at the top because typically people are kind of coming and going, and it gives a little bit of time for everybody to settle in, because getting here right at 5:30 is not always possible. So we got someone else coming in just right now. We'll get started, and let me share this with you. Wherever your profession is, I'm going to assume because you're here, Laura, which Laura you are, I'm very glad you're here. So Laura, welcome. So Laura, glad you're here. So I'm assuming whichever, why you're here is because in some nature, you are a salesperson. And a lot of folks really don't enjoy that title. No, I mean, there's a lot of people who just kind of cringe or kind of shirk at being called a salesperson. But if you in any way you have a responsibility for the sales of either your personal company or the company you work for, you are a salesperson. And like I said, there's often some stigma attached to it. People say, well, I don't want to be like a used car salesman. And I know some really great used car salesmen, by the way. I did have to buy a car 2 weeks ago and didn't enjoy it in any way. But I've got to say that the guy I worked with was fantastic, fairly upfront. But if you are in this position here, you're in sales. Your job in some way is to drive more business and more revenue, either to a business that you own or a company that you're working for. And assuming most times sales has this attached, that there is a measure that your salary is dependent upon how well you do. So that's not always the case. Commission is not always the case attached to a lot of sales job, but it is expected. So even if you're in marketing, I'm telling you as the owner of a marketing company, is if we're working for someone and they don't grow, then they're often saying, what good is it having you? So even if you're in marketing, sales is often attached to it. I'll have a trivia question for you. You guys can answer this in the chat if you will. This is a fairly common sales statistic, but take a guess. What percentage of salespeople never ask for the sale? Now, what I mean by that is we're going to use car salesman. We will pick on, let's say I'm selling you a car. And at some point in time, I go, Laura, would you like to buy this car today? Laura, are you going to buy this car today? Or if it's my program, like Nancy, would you be interested in buying this program today? Do you feel like you know enough to buy the program today? In sales stats, there is a fairly large number, I'll give you a hint, of salespeople who never ask for the sale. So we have, what do we have here? We have 50% don't, 85%, 80, 85%. Sam, I will give you, I will find a gift for you, 75. The answer is 80% of salespeople never ask, hey, would you like to buy this today? Why do you think that is? Why do you think, and just hop in, unmute yourself. Why do you think people don't ask for the sale? Why do you think that is? That's a massive number. Why don't people ever say, are you interested in buying this product today? What do you think?
You're fearing rejection?
Yeah, 100%. No one likes to be rejected, right? I mean, like you feel rejected. You're like, oh, you feel terrible about yourself. You're like, did I not do a good enough job? When I was in my first sales job, which was I sold legal document reproduction. So like when one law firm was suing another law firm and they had to share documents, they had to share it in like a confidential manner. And I worked for a company that was the middle person. So I would work with law firms and say, hey, we'll copy your documents for you confidentially to share. And it was a massive industry because lots of paper, lots of documents are being produced. And I remember I had one day where I had been turned down so many times, which is probably 4. I don't know. I've been turned down over and over again. And I drove all the way out to a prospective client. It was like 4:30 on a Friday, not a Friday, like 4:30. And I'm sitting in the parking lot. And I just thought, I can't go in that office again. Like I literally can't walk in there for someone to tell me no again. I just hopped in my car and went back home. Like I couldn't take one more no. And I was maybe, I don't know what it was, 27 years old. I was just like, I couldn't take it. But yeah, there's a fear of rejection. Why else? Why don't people ask for the sale? Anybody else got a suggestion? You got any ideas?
Well, I think it makes you uncomfortable. It makes people uncomfortable to ask like that.
Yeah. What do you think? Is it? Do you think it's? I think you're right, Laura. Is it uncomfortability for me, or is it a worry uncomfortability for them? What do you think?
I mean, I think being in sales, it's uncomfortable for me. I mean, it just is. You know, it's hard to ask because you're afraid. I guess it goes back to number one, which is the fear of rejection. It's just it's uncomfortable.
It is. And a lot of times in a small community, you're asking someone you know too. Like you're networking, you're building a relationship with someone, and then now you're asking someone you know, like, hey, will you give me money? And like it can be uncomfortable. But yeah, there's an uncomfortability, there's fear of rejection. Sometimes we attach our identity to how well we do. And all of those go in there. But here's the crazy thing. The most successful salespeople are typically the 20%. If we're going to determine success as in sales, like if we're going to determine sales as we're growing, we're taking in, we're growing in revenue. I mean, I guess, is there another measure for sales other than revenue? I don't know. That's another question we can address at some point in time. But the most successful are the ones who learn how to ask for the sale and then find a way to do it and live with themselves. And there's nothing dirty about asking for the sales. It's just, can you do it in such a way you feel comfortable with yourself? So I'm going to answer this question. I'm going to give you guys a chance to answer it for yourself. The question is this: what was the first thing you ever sold? So think about it. What's the first thing you ever sold? And so here's my answer. I was probably now it's about 12 years old, and my brother and I would drive on the way to school. Laura, it would be at a gas station right there at 301 and 95. I'm sure you've been there at some point in time. And I would load up at school and I would buy tons of candy in my book bag. And then I would go to school and I would sell the candy. And so I would have candy bars, I'd have pops, lollipops, I'd have gum. And so I would just go around school. And at some point in time, I saw my brother doing it and he had money. And I thought, well, I'll just do the same, until I eventually got called into the principal's office and they called my parents and told me I couldn't sell candy anymore. And so, but as far as I can know, I think that was the first time I ever had a sale. But I guess it was somewhat easy, because if you've got a bag full of candy bars and you're in, was that 6th grade, people are going to want to buy it. And so it was simple, but that was the first thing I ever remember selling as far as I know. Anybody else remember what their first thing was they sold? Anybody?
I sold coat hangers when I was 13 years old at Englishtown auction in
Brian, you sold
Englishtown, New Jersey. I sold them like this. I said, get your hangers here, 10 for $1, 21 for $2. I sold a lot of 21 for $2. They wanted that extra hanger.
Where did you do this?
Englishtown auction in Englishtown, New Jersey.
Good for you.
13 years old. Yeah.
That was fantastic. No one has ever answered that question with coat hangers. Good for you. Lemonade and custom t-shirt. Did you bedazzle it? How'd you do a custom t-shirt?
I had a friend who was a good artist, and she drew up the art options, and I had them in a binder and sheet protectors, and I would collect a deposit on the design the person wanted, and then I would hand trace it onto the shirt.
Fantastic. But you would make each shirt by hand?
Yes.
That's a work of art. That's impressive. Okay, fantastic. Lee,
Yeah, I didn't know better.
Lee, you did Kirby vacuums, like door to door, knock on the door vacuum cleaners?
Yes, sir.
Rock on, man. Door to door is no joke.
It
That's
was not
good for you, man. How long did you do that?
for about 3 months.
Good for you. I'm impressed with you, Lee. The more and more I know. And Jamila, you sold Tupperware. So did you have like house parties? Is that what you did?
Yes, back then we did do house parties. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So that's a lot like what are the pans, the big pans that you not the stuff that cleans really well and you can put cookies on them and what it's like that. I mean, do you guys remember
Pampered Chef?
Yes, Pampered Chef. And so I remember my parents having a Pampered Chef party in like 88, like one of the first ones ever. And so, but I remember Tupperware goes all the way back to the 70s, Jamila. So good for you. Good for you. Every teacher I know has had a side gig. Every I know has had a side gig. So excellent.
Well,
Anybody else? What's that?
Sorry, I sold Mary Kay for over almost 30 years.
Wow. Did you really?
Mhm.
Did you go
I'm
to the
still-
national conventions?
Oh, yes,
Oh,
lots of them.
Yep. Yep. I've got a friend here in town who's got the Cadillac and the whole deal. So impressive.
And they
So-
give you fabulous training.
It is good training. It's fantastic training. Anybody else? Any last sales experiences? I admire all of you, but I'm gonna have to give Lee the door-to-door salesperson award for vacuum cleaners. I've done door-to-door for other stuff. It's not fun. I'm just gonna tell you, it's not fun. It's not completely safe these days either. So at some point in time, so here's the thing. And so I know, Lee, I know you had to ask, would you like to buy a vacuum cleaner? Typically in Tupperware or Mary Kay or home parties that I've seen, typically you do a presentation to a group. And here's the offer. Not saying you didn't do one-on-one sales, I'm sure you did. But typically there's like, hey, here is the offer, and people come to you. But here's the thing for everybody. I'm sorry, Nancy mentioned Girl Scouts. Thin Mints are the way to go, by the way. I'm a Thin Mint person, by the way. There is no other cookie other than Thin Mints. You can make good milkshakes with them. If you don't ask for the sale in your profession, if you don't say, I knew someone was going to say Samoas. If you don't say, would you like to do this? This is what you're doing. You ready? If you don't ask for the sale, what you're saying is, I've presented what I have to offer so well and so attractively that you're going to come to me and ask me for my product. And that does happen sometimes, but it doesn't usually scale for sales. You know how difficult it is to do that? You know how difficult it is? When you've got to capture an audience who's already said, I'd like to learn about makeup or Tupperware. I'm not going to say it's easy, but all of them have already chosen to be there. So you do have a little bit of a leg up, right? You already have an audience that says, I'm interested in that thing. But if you're online, let's say you're marketing yourself online and you're not going to ask people for the sale, essentially you're saying, I've made such a beautiful presentation of what I have to offer. People are just going to come to me. And that's a lot of hoops and hurdles for a person to jump. So what I want to do is I'm going to give us 3 simple steps to get there so that you can make one sale. Because I know folks right now who have products that are still waiting to sell one thing, or they have an offer and they're still waiting to sell one thing, or they're trying to figure out, how can I increase sales? That's how can I get one more? What have I got to do? And so with that introduction, I've got 3 things that I hope are going to help you do it. And again, guys, my background was school teacher, which if you've ever been a school teacher, I know Laura, I know Jamila, I know you are a salesperson. I promise you that, because in school, if you're teaching school, you're doing everything you can to convince them to pay attention for an extra minute and buy what you're teaching them. So there's an element of sales to that. I went from from teaching into sales, which was 2 years of commission-based sales. And it was one of the best and hardest experiences of my life, because it was, live off of what you can kill that day. What I'm doing now is very much sales. I very much have to be a salesperson in that. So for all of you, I'm hoping that these 3 steps are things that I've learned that I hope will help you. And then I also want to hear from you guys. There's some phenomenal salespeople on the call right now that I'd like to hear. But let's get started. Number 1, if you don't believe in what you're selling, you're not going to be a good salesperson. Okay. So number 1 is you have got to be firm and believe in what you're offering. Don't get me wrong. You can do it. People sell things they don't love because of the money they make. But if you're selling something that you love and that you're passionate about, you will grow in your sales. Again, I'm going to say it again. A lot of it, Lee, you probably weren't passionate about vacuum cleaners. I get it. It was probably a means to an end. But the more, and you can do this, if you're not passionate about what you're selling, if you believe it's a good product, that's where your passion comes from. But you got to be firm on what you offer. You've got to believe this is a good thing to be a good salesperson. At least for everybody I see in this crowd. I'm confident we can find some sales platform somewhere where people know they're selling something that's terrible and it's only in it for the money. But for us, for someone who's trying to do it in integrity, if you believe that it's a good product and you're firm on what you have to offer, that's the first thing to making a sale. I know Laura will tell me, and I know everyone I know from Reputation, that Title is the best in town. I know everybody I know has said Title is the best in town. Laura, I hate to speak for you. I don't know if you're passionate about title searches, but I know that you and everyone else in town will say Title is the best. So is that what helps you when you go out to market, Laura?
Yes, it absolutely does, because I genuinely believe the Title Professionals is the best title company in Stafford. Because I've seen others and I've done a lot of research, and it's hard to sell a product you can't back.
Mhm.
And what I have to sell, I can back up 100%. I mean, we have the best team. We have the best customer service. We were best in the Berg this year. I mean, those things aren't happy accidents. I 100% believe in the company that I work for.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I can tell that in it, Laura. I mean, I can tell that you firmly believe in the company. You also believe in the charitable aspect that you guys do. You know your company makes a big impact. So whereas I don't know if anybody thinks title searches is sexy, if you will. I don't know but I know from Laura, and I know that what she has to offer and what that company does, that's where you can say, well, I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate about that thing. Here's the thing for all of us. Knowing what you have to offer and being firm in it means being able to explain the details and the value of what that is. Like, you've got to be able to say, this is what the value of this thing is if you want to make a sale. Like, I 100% believe in the product that we offer at Capitalize. Like, I can say, this is the value. I've designed it. I know its impact. I can explain the details of it really, really well. I can defend it. If people are like, I don't know, I'm able to defend it. And part of knowing your offer and being firm about your offer and being passionate about it means not only being able to offer it, but being able to defend it. Has anyone here ever done any rebuttal training? Ever done any like sales rebuttal training? I'll offer a free resource.
I have.
Who's that? Sam? You've done some of it?
Yeah.
Sam, where did you do that? With Mary Kay?
Yes.
Yeah.
And also with cruise planners.
Yeah, I get it. Because at some point in time, someone's going to say, I don't know about that. And you've got it. You've got one of two options. You can go, well, thanks for listening to me. Or you can explain why you have a superior product. There's a book here, the Grant Cardone Rebuttal Manual. I have read this thing. It's fairly repetitive at times, but it'll literally teach you how to handle like when people say no or people argue against you. I will say, if you buy this book, this company will hound you with emails and personal phone calls because they're good at sales. Maybe you can borrow my copy, but the rebuttal manual will, like, I'll give you an example. Let's say someone says, I would go with you. I'd buy your product, Brian, but it's just too expensive. Okay. Now, your price is your price. And I know, Brian, yours doesn't work that way. I'm just picking on you because I can see your picture. One of the questions to respond to that is, well, let me ask you, if price wasn't an issue, is that you're saying you would do it? And if someone goes, yes, then you know the price is the issue. But if someone says no, then you go, well, what is it then? And then you're actually dealing with the heart of the issue. Then it says, well, my wife and I have agreed not spending money this month. It's like, okay, that's the real issue, not the cost. And so when someone is going to give you a rebuttal or give you, like, that's the whole thing about knowing the firmness and having your offer is being not only to be able to offer it in good details, but actually be able to handle the rebuttals or the no's against it. So very important and part of sales, making that one sale is being so firm in your offer, knowing the details, even knowing the details to the point that you can handle objections. Handling objections is completely uncomfortable if you don't, I mean, because none of us want to be argumentative. I mean, very few of us are going to argue someone into a sale. And we're also trying to avoid that car salesman thing. So that first point is we want to make sure we're firm in our offer. We want to make sure we know it in and out, know it so well that we can even handle the rebuttals. That's the first one, is just being firm in your offer and knowing it well. Hopefully believing in it as well. All right, number two. This one I'm passionate about. This one, some of you have heard me say. If you want to make a sale, you have got to be able to network where your potential client is. Not network. You have to network where your potential client is. Because if you're networking and your potential client is there, what are you really doing? Anybody? If I'm networking and my potential client's not in that room, what am I doing?
Wasting
Having
your time.
Wasting time, 100%. What else, Sam?
Having lunch.
I'm having lunch. I'm socializing, right? I mean, and
Yeah.
listen, I love socializing. I love having fun. I love getting together with people. But if I'm networking for sales and the person who is going to buy my product is not in that room, then I'm socializing, except for one caveat. Here's the only caveat to that. If there are people in that room who are going to refer me to my ideal client. Now, if someone who's going to refer me to my ideal clients in that room, then that's networking. But the most effective networking is I'm going where my ideal client is to meet them. That's what networking is. Otherwise, we're socializing, like Sam said, we're having lunch, we're hanging out, we're having a good time. Now, we can go somewhere where my ideal client's not, but there's got to be a referral base for that. Now, think about that online. How many folks here network online? And I mean, like, seriously, like you're trying to find a client and connect online itself. Anybody? Like you're trying to find your client through, like you're actually having a conversation online that would lead to a sale. How many here who might do that? Anybody? No? Brian, makes sense? No? Nancy, I would say you eventually for the launch of your coaching program. Lee, I would say for you potentially, my friend, for what you're doing. Okay, so let's say you're online. I had that as an example. I'll go back to in person. If you're networking online for business, then the only way to do that is to get beyond the broad Facebook, social media, and then get into like smaller groups. Like I'm into a group of my interest. And so for you, Nancy, that would be like an autism group, like an autism support group online. That's you networking, meeting people, friending them, and eventually being able to offer your service. Nancy has a second business where she's coaching adult parents of adult autistic children. Is that correct, Nancy? Did I say that well? Okay, so think about all of us in this room. Most everybody here is local. We got a million networking events to choose from. We got a networking event every single day to choose from, practically. And the old joke is, if you're not careful, you network yourself to bankruptcy, right? I'll say it over and over again. It's my bumper sticker. But when we are choosing where to go, if we're going to a place where we know our ideal client exists, that's networking. To do that, you have to know who your ideal client is. You have to be specific about it. Title professionals, very specific, right? Like, you know who your ideal clients are. Primarily, you're talking to the realtors. You know, there's other folks that are going to refer you in. Brian is a CPA. And so Brian has specific people that fit who he typically works with. Though you may have, say you'll do anybody books. I'm not quite sure, Brian. And so Jamila, I know you are a realtor. And so we've talked about this, like, though you would be glad to buy and sell most any house, there are typically people that fall into the ranges of price, income, and location that are yours. Even if you'd be glad to buy and sell any house in the world, it's not going to do you any good right now to go to prospect an event in Jacksonville, Florida. So even in that, you're still looking to, where do I need to go? And so if you want to make a sale, it's very specific to know who your ideal client is and then map out, that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to find out where they are, and I'm going there specifically to get to know them, to friend them, to have an opportunity to share what I do, and then have an opportunity to make a sale. How many of you right now feel like you're in those networking opportunities? And if so, share with me why you think that is.
I work a lot with builders and realtors. We go to weekly realtor and building association meetings. We're going to an event next Friday night for a fundraiser that's a builder's opportunity. They give us, I'd say, 70% of our business.
Okay, incredible. This might be a great time before we hop on. It looks like everybody's in, and before we get to number 3, everybody share real quick what it is you do. Susan, would you mind just keep on going and share it with the group, everybody, what you do?
So my husband and I own Crystal Clear Glass, and we purchased out Stafford Glass, who's been in Stafford for about 25 years. And I also own another business. I'm a CPR instructor. I've owned Susan CPR for you in Stafford for 22 years.
Awesome. And everybody feel free to put your contact information in the chat too, so that we know how to follow up, and Susan, so we can find you guys. Brian, share with everybody what you do.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am a CPA. I do accounting, tax, and audit work for my clients.
Excellent. And good at it. Thanks, Brian. Sam, share with everybody yourself and what you do.
I'm a travel advisor with Cruise Planners, and I provide vacation inspiration.
Vacation inspiration. Love it. I like that. So again, everybody feel free to put your contact information in the chat. Lee, are you able to introduce yourself, sir? No, he's in the car waiting for his wife. So Lee, hop in anytime. Everybody moved on me. Jamila, if you'd introduce yourself.
I am Jamila Darwish. I am a real estate agent with Century 21 New Millennium.
Excellent. Thank you. Kristen.
Hi, my name is Kristen. I live in downtown Fredericksburg. I currently work for World Central Kitchen, but also am building a website, retail focused on home decor.
Fantastic. That's new. That's fantastic. I didn't know that. Nancy.
I am a home stager through Simple Joy Designs, and then I am also a life coach working with parents of children with autism or adults with autism to let them reclaim their life.
Fantastic. And Laura.
I am the marketing director for the Title Professionals, a title company in downtown Fredericksburg.
Awesome. And a realtor and artist as well.
Yes,
So,
I do lots of things.
you do lots of things. And Lee, if you get a chance to hop in, and everyone else put in your chat. Guys, I'm Gordon and I own Capitalized Marketing. I want to come back to this networking for a moment. And Laura and I were at an event this past week for the Stafford EDA at Potomac Point Winery. Great place to have a marketing event, right? And so lots of people walking around, and I had a chance to speak to Joel Griffin. Joel Griffin He runs Gwyneth's Gifts, which is a nonprofit, and he owns Rebellion Whiskey and just has his hands in everything. He's on the chamber board and he's on, I mean, everywhere. And while I'm standing there talking to him, and so Joel is an incredibly successful person. While I'm talking to him, at least 2 people come up to him and ask something of him. Like, will you do this or will you do that? I mean, like big favors that you would ask of someone. And that happens when you're successful in a community and you're on boards and that kind of thing. People are going to ask you for stuff. So I asked him, I was like, Joel, do you ever get tired of people asking you for things? And he said, not really. And I'll tell you why. It's like, why? He goes, 75% of them never follow up. He goes, I say yes to everything. If someone says, hey, would you like to come speak to my group? I go, yeah, I'd be glad to. Just follow up with me and get the details worked out. He's like, no one ever follows up. And I was stunned by that. One, he's incredibly generous with his time. He's at this networking event. He's walking around. He's one of the more successful people in our community. And no one ever follows up when they ask him things. So for all of us, we're at a networking event. We've got our ideal client in front of us. We've all got a stack of business cards like that big. I literally have a Ziploc bag, probably like you guys, of business cards. I mean, I have so many of them. None of that does any good if we don't follow up with the people that we get business cards from. Like, it's typically on us, unless the other person's a better salesperson than we are. But if we get a card and we see them, like, okay, this is a potential client. I might make a sale from this person. I won't know until I get together with them or have a conversation with them, or have coffee or whatever the case may be. If we're not following up with them, it's probably going to disappear. It's probably going to disappear. I hate cliches, but cliches are great when they're true. And that cliche about follow up is what? You might remember? The fortune is in the follow up. Like, if you don't follow up, you're not going to get the sale, especially if you're the one in a situation where you want them to buy from you. You might meet someone. Again, if you don't follow up, your hope is, I have impressed them so much, they're going to beg for my product. And that might happen. It does happen. Every now and then someone will reach out to you. You're like, hey, I met you at this event and I really want to learn more. Man, that is the best. But in sales, it's usually, I got someone's card and I'm going to need to text them, or I'm going to need to call them or email and say, hey, really had a great time talking to you on Thursday. It was really good. Can we get together for a cup of coffee? I'd like to learn a little bit more about you, what you do, and maybe share what I do. And most people are going to be like, yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to get together with you. But that follow-up from that networking event in front of your ideal client is very much how you make one sale. And so to this day, I met a guy, I don't know his name. I can't find his card. I was at a chamber event about 6 months ago. He was super interested in talking to me. Like, we made a connection. He's like, this is my last card. I'll give it to you. I was going to give him my card. He's like, I got to walk out the door. Listen, just follow up with me. One of these days, I'm going to find that guy's card and apologize profusely. But it was one of those situations. She's like, dude, let's get together on the calendar. I'd love to hear from you. And that one's on me. But that's fantastic. He was that interested, but it's still up for me to follow up. So making one sale is about networking in front of your ideal client. And networking doesn't end when the event ends. Networking ends when you have followed up with your potential client. What's the sales stat on how many times you have to talk to a potential client before they buy? Anybody know how many times? Industry standard. Take a guess. You can chat it. 7. Sam's on it. 7. Typically, you have to follow up with someone and have 7 interactions before someone chooses to buy with you. And maybe not. Maybe you guys are killing it with 2 or 3 or even 1, but 7 is quite often. I have a potential client who said, hey, I'm still interested. I got to take a trip to Finland. I'll be back on the 12th. I'll talk to you then. Well, I know that person's coming in on the 12th from Finland. So I waited until the 13th. I was like, hey, glad you're coming back. Sure you're adjusting. Why don't we set some time up next week when you're all adjusted? Look forward to talking to you, because they said they're going to do it. and I have not heard from them yet. What are we on to the 15th here? I'm trying to give them some time. This has been a 6-month pursuit for me. And I've told them, I was like, if you're not interested, I totally understand. Let me know. No, I'm interested. At some point in time, I got to decide what the time is here, but the follow-up on them is up to me. But I am close to about 8 times at this point in time. All right. Be firm in your offer. Know what you're going to offer. You got to love it all the way to the point of being able to handle objections. Number 2, you got to network where your ideal client is. And 3 is the one that people don't enjoy the most. 3 is, if you are going to be serious about sales, you've got to be relentless. I'm not saying you got to be rude. I'm not saying you've got to be annoying. But successful sales is about being relentless. How many of you have seen the movie Wolf of Wall Street? I will not share any clips from that movie. Have you guys ever seen Wolf of Wall Street? Brian?
Yes.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say yes.
Good movie.
Yeah, so about a guy who made a ton of money in sales, but he also blew it on lots of things that we can't say here in a public forum. Yes. But he had a group of guys, and he trained them to do phone sales to buy stocks. And so this is the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, maybe early 90s. And he trained them, and he's got a sales method to this day. But he told them, he said, every phone call you make, that potential client is either going to buy or they are going to what? Die. It's either buy or die. Now, I don't want us to be that way. You know, they're like, that person's either one day, one or two things. They're going to buy from me one day or they're going to die. That's not the way I want us to approach. That's the hyperbole of the example. The less hyperbolic example comes from a movie called Boiler Room. Brian, you've seen that one as well? Same concept. He said, listen, when you ask someone to buy, a sale is always made.
Sorry, yes, of course, I've seen that one too.
A sale is always made. Either you sell them a product or they sell you on why they're not going to buy. One of the two are going to happen. I have no desire for you to sell a product or service to someone who does not need it. Please don't do that. Integrity says we should not do that. Don't buy or sell. Don't buy. Let me slow down. Don't sell anything to someone who doesn't need it. Okay? It's frivolous. Have integrity. But if you feel like here's a person who could potentially work with you, and here's the big thing, you have a solution to their problem. Either you're going to sell them on that or they're going to sell you on why they're not going to work with you. And so the important thing is there's got to be a relentless nature of waking up and saying, I'm a salesperson. This is what I do today. My job. I'm a salesperson. That's what I've got to do. I've got to be relentless. If I'm going to be successful at this, then every day I've got to get up and sell. And I got to figure out where the people are. And I've got to go talk to them. And I've got to network with them. And I've got to educate with them. And I can't be the 80%. I got to be the 20% who ask for the sale. I've got to do it with integrity. I've got to do it gently. I've got to do it understandably with people's financial situations. And eventually it's got to be the point that if I know someone who's a potential for what I offer and I can do it in integrity, then I need to go through the list and ask every one of them. And that's the hard thing. What keeps us, let me offer this hypothetical. Let's say you can offer your product with integrity. You're not an annoying salesperson. What keeps you from that relentless nature? Anybody? Does that make anybody feel uncomfortable when you talk about being relentless in sales?
Well, if you're trying not to be a high pressure person,
Mhm.
you could feel if you keep pursuing this person relentlessly that you are
Mhm.
high pressure.
Yeah. And Sam, you're right. Most every one of us is going to refrain from a high pressure salespeople, though we probably have all at some point in time bought something from high pressure salespeople. Most of us, I think, don't want to be that. But let me give you, this is not in the notes. Here's a surefire way, 100% way to make sure that you can be relentless and not be high pressure. This is 100%. You can be relentless and not be high pressure if you do this one thing. Okay. So you've spoken to someone. I've only got two faces here, so I'm gonna keep picking on them. So I'm gonna pick on Brian. So I'm like, Brian, Brian, I really would like to put together a marketing package for you. It's gonna be 6 months. It's gonna be about $1,200 a month. I feel like we're gonna cover 3 different social media platforms for you. It's gonna be about $1,200 a month. And Brian, you say, listen, now is not the time. We had to cut our marketing budget. We're going to cover it in-house. I think we've got those things covered. Now, relentlessness in a bad way would be like, Brian, listen, man, you don't understand the money. That would not be it. But if I said, hey, Brian, I completely understand the time. It's been a really tough economic period for all of us. Would you mind if I followed up in 3 months to see if anything's different? And then Brian's in control of that. If he says, sure, I wouldn't mind you following me up in 3 months, that's relentless without being annoying. But then Brian, you could say, no, listen, Gordon, this is not something we're ever going to do. I'm be like, okay, at that point in time, I am not, if I get told don't follow up with me ever again, I'm not going to follow up with him. But if you get a no and you get permission to follow up at a certain time, then you put on your phone 3 months from now, follow up with Brian, make a couple of notes to remember what's going on. And that enables you to be relentless without being annoying. So that's one way to continue the follow-up, to keep the relentless nature of like, I've got to do sales. This is what I do. I do sales without bothering. And I would begin with, I'd call Brian and be like, hello. I'd be like, hey, Brian, it's Gordon. Hey, listen, we spoke 3 months ago. You told me it was okay if I followed up, and I'd start the conversation that way. And then Brian's got every right to say, hey, Gordon, it's still not a good time. I'm like, hey, good. And after a while, you're even free to say, hey, Brian, listen, would it be better for me not to ask you about this again? I mean, it's all those are fine questions. Most people would say, it's fine. You can ask, as long as you're not being the annoying high pressure person. So, any thoughts and questions about the relentless nature of sales? Well, let's back up then. We got 15 minutes left, everybody, and I want to cover about 10 more minutes, and then I have a couple minutes at the end to share a few things with you. So we've got that be firm in your offer. You got to know and believe in what you offer is a good thing. You've got to be able to offer it. You've even got to be able to defend it. 2, you got to network where you know your ideal client is, or at least where you can be referred to your ideal client. And then 3, be relentless. Any thoughts or questions or observations? I'd love to hear from any and all of you.
I enjoyed the presentation.
Thanks, man. Thank you, Brian. Brian, what was your second thing you sold after paper hangers, after clothes hangers?
Drake's Cakes.
What?
Drake's Cakes. It was at the same place, probably the same day.
So
Yep.
What is a Drake's cake? Is that a
Like
cleaning?
like Hostess's Drake Cakes.
Oh,
the
okay.
like stuff you eat.
Yeah, okay. I didn't.
Probably don't eat at this point,
Yeah.
right? Because it's really good for you.
Have you always been a salesperson, Brian? Has that always been where you at?
No, that was just the first job I happened to get.
Okay.
Been anti-salesperson up until I started my own business, and now I have to sell. So
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, man. Nancy, what were you going to say?
I was just gonna ask you, so I feel like you are a very natural salesperson. Like, has that taken a while to develop?
That's a great question. I would say that I've probably been more of, I started out as a teacher, and then I spent years as a pastor. So I spent a lot of time in my life explaining things. So I feel like I'm fairly natural at explaining things. And, I did get an education degree, and then seminary taught me a lot about presentation. But I will say starting around 2008, I started taking lots of sales courses. I did Cardone U, I did the one funnel away challenge. The Maxwell stuff is not really sales, so there is a module on it. But yeah, about 5 years ago, I started taking sales courses because just being able to explain things doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a sale. And then part of my story, I think I've shared with some of you guys. I mean, I'm 51, so starting over with a new career when you're 50, it's just not a whole lot of time. The learning curve, I needed to shorten the learning curve to attempt to be successful. And I've got friends who are just phenomenal salespeople. I mean, like just super, super successful. They're very good. I've learned a lot from them. So I've got one buddy that if I'm just turned around in a knot, I will call him, and he's done more sales training than I have because he's been doing it for about 30 years. And he's just very, very smart in what he presents. So what's really helpful for all of us guys is, are we selling something that people naturally want or need? If not, what you have to do is you actually have to create the need. And there's nothing wrong with that. But like what I offer, I think there's a natural need from it. I'm like, I'm going to help you with your marketing and coaching. You're going to make more money. There's a connection there. Jamila, people need a home. And so, if you've got obstacles to overcome, as in anything, but people need a home. Sometimes we're selling things that we have to create the need in their mind. Like, hey, this is why this is important to you. You may never have considered this, but this will help you in your life or in some circumstance. And so when we're in those situations, what we're trying to do is we're helping people say, hey, this need is in your life. You may not be aware of it. Maybe you are. This is what's going on in your life because that need's not getting met. I will help eliminate all of that by what I have to offer to you. So if what you're offering is not just a natural need, a home or, not getting, rated by the IRS, those kind of things, if it's not that kind of natural, then what you've actually got to do is help people see the need in their life. And when they can see the need in their life and you can show them how you can meet it, then you have an opportunity for a sale. So you also have to be careful with it. That's also, can be used for evil. So you gotta be really careful with it. So sales can go in both directions. So any other thoughts or questions? Thanks, Nancy. But no, I don't know if I was a natural salesperson. I was sort of a natural explainer. And that rolled into sales to a certain extent. But I'll admit this, when you're a preacher 48 Sundays out of 52, you got 35 minutes to convince somebody of something. And there's a natural, when I was a preacher, I wrote my sermons out word for word and then memorized them. So I would write out 8 Word documents every single Sunday, which is the equivalent of writing a novel every year. And so you began to learn, how to the technique of going from one point to the next and that kind of thing. So I'm sure that helps somewhat too. Other thoughts, guys? Any questions?
Hello?
Hey, Lee.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. We had you, but we lost you.
Because it seems like I've seen in so many instances where people didn't have necessarily a good product, but they were a heck of a salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
Their sales game. So now it just seems like, so there is a question here then. So it seems to me like, of course, it seems to me like really the key is to up your sales game. And so what is a way to, like, especially if you're maybe like more introverted and you're not, you don't have the, hey, how do you I won't say develop it, but how do you even practice that?
So I think you're asking how to practice, like sort of your
Is it just about going out and yeah.
So all right. I mean, I'll tell you what to do, and you may not, and no one's going to want to do it. You know, you got to get your voice memo on your phone, and you got to record yourself and go back and listen to it. And it's completely uncomfortable. I mean, it's absolutely uncomfortable. If you are presenting something and you know the questions you get, I mean, after a while you get questions, then answer the common questions. Write down your 5 most common questions you get, and then practice answering them. Get into a coaching program is absolutely essential. Whether it's just reading a book or whether it's signing up for one or getting into mentorship. I mean, learning from folks who can do it. But typically, you know, do it into your phone. It's not uncommon for me to go for a run and spend the whole time talking. I'm giving a presentation tomorrow at Janet's office. You guys know Janet Holt. And so I've got my outline, but that's all I have. And so when I go running tomorrow, when I leave my house, I will talk for the next hour, and I'll practice the entire talk while I'm running, and I'll stop and start. I'm sure people think I'm a crazy person, 5 o'clock in the morning, running down the road in the dark talking. But for me, I process more verbally. And I don't know what I sound like until I know what I sound like. So yeah, there's a lot of practice. I've got a friend named Jay Lee. He calls himself the sales ninja. He has a sales training company, and he 100% believes in sales practice. Like, you know, calling up someone and say, hey, did I explain this well? You know, can I explain this to you? Can I present something to you and you tell me no and I respond? I mean, it's good salespeople figure out how to do that, because when we don't do it, what happens is someone says, I just don't really know. Like at that point in time, if we haven't practiced, we are 100% on the spot. Like, okay, you know, I don't mean that badly. Like if we haven't practiced it, that's a really uncomfortable moment for us, because we just don't know what the next thing is. And so, like I said, one of those questions is like, hey, I totally understand. What, then there's a series of questions. Was there information that I felt like, I mean, if I'd given you different information, you feel like you'd have been able to make a different decision? Or, you know, there's a series of questions that we just kind of learn to ask. And so you're self-employed, talking to yourself counts as a staff meeting. That's 100% right. But a lot of it, Lee, is practice. I mean, we've got to practice to get better at sales, and get better at those back and forths, handling the no. But really, I think the concise presentation, like, number one, can we present what we do concisely so that people are like, that makes sense. Like that I can recognize I have a need and that you meet it very quickly in the way you just explained it. And some folks are gifted at it, but I promise you they've practiced. I promise practice. And so, and if we're learning,
thank you for that.
Sure. Anytime. I've been embarrassed by all that stuff, doing it wrong, practicing it, all that stuff. So any other thoughts, guys? Believe it or not, this is the first sales seminar I've ever given. So this is a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys letting me practice on you. Usually it's marketing. If you don't mind, we've got about 5 minutes. I'd like to share something with you just for 2 minutes. I do want to share with you about capitalized marketing, if that's okay. And if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen with you really quick. I've got just 2 quick things to share with you, if that's okay. We have a program called Capitalize Your Best. And this is what it is. It's a series of 23 online videos. Whoa, look at that, 23 online videos where we will help you either create a program or create a marketing program for you. We'll help you do that. It includes 4 one-on-one coaching calls and also what we call 2 unstuck calls. If at any point in time you just don't know what to do, you can give me a call. And this is a hybrid program of online videos and in-person coaching. When you sign up for that, you get what's called the Boost Thread, which is a group of committed people that when you post on social media, they will like and comment on your post. That will boost it up in the algorithm. That way you don't have to buy Facebook ads. You'll post something and all of a sudden you're going to get 10, 12 people immediately liking and commenting on it. And then we also have the Capitalize Your Best group. All of you guys are part of the one group with the exclusive daily coaching, weekly coaching, and guest coaches. But we also have a secondary group that if you sign up for the Capitalize Your Best group, you become part of that. And we do things like social media audits. I'll just pop on and do like a 5-minute teaching time. I'm very honest and vulnerable in that group, and we'll tell people when I have crappy days and invite people to do the same. But this is a summary of all the things that are in the Capitalize Your Best group. And again, this is for anybody who's looking to grow their sales or perhaps create a marketing or coaching program. The program is typically $5,200. The value of that broken down is $1,200 for the Boost Thread, the Elite membership at $1,200, and then total is $76. But if anyone is interested in learning more about this program, for being on the seminar today, we'll let you have that program for $3,600. And it's either 90 days or 6 months, depending upon if you want to go whichever pace. But the whole idea of that is we have people come in, we have folks who are like, hey, I need marketing programs, but I want to do it myself. This is going to teach them to do it. We have coaches who come on, so like, I'd like to create a coaching program. It enables it to do it. So it's a pretty versatile tool for either growing your revenue with a product you have or creating a brand new product and selling it online. So either one of those, but it's a value of about $7,600, and we're offering it for anybody on the Zoom call today for $3,600. So if you're interested in it, please reach out to me. I'd love to answer any questions. But again, if you want to grow a product or service you already have, it works for you. Or if you'd like to create an online product, we can help you do that as well. So if anybody has any questions, just reach out to me. Just send me a message and I'll be glad to answer anything you might have. 6:29, boom. Anybody have any final questions or thoughts or any way that I can help you? I'll be glad to do it. Anybody have any contributions?
Just to say thank you, Gordon.
Oh, sure. Sure. I'm glad you're here. Thank you, Sam. I'm glad to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, sure thing, Lee. Kristen, someone escaped from the camera very quickly. And so
It was a good way to get my lap back.
there you go. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thank you. So you guys are great. And listen, we don't have to wait for a seminar. If you guys just have a thought or a question about that stuff, just message me. I mean, you can text me. You're welcome, Laura. You can text me or message me on Facebook or something. There's my phone number. So don't hesitate to reach out if you've ever got a thought or question. I'm always glad to help. So any last thoughts? Who has dinner waiting for them? Anybody? Laura, what are you going to have?
Oh, I made homemade bolognese sauce. It cooks all day. So that's what we'll be having tonight with salad.
Wow. That sounds, yeah. Does your house smell really nice?
My house smells amazing. Yes.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Anybody else know what they're eating after this? I love asking food questions. Anybody?
You know, I had to get dinner started while we were on this call.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
I've already had my dinner and my dessert.
Wow. So wait, I need to know both. Susan, what was dinner and dessert?
I had pork chops with applesauce, and then I had a yogurt sundae for dessert.
You had the Brady Bunch meal. Pork chops and applesauce. I don't know if you remember that episode, but that sounds fantastic. So
I have a kid named Marcia, so it works.
that's right. So Kristen, what did you make?
We're doing roasted red pepper soup and hot turkey and cheese roll-ups.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. Anybody else?
We're having leftovers.
I love leftovers. I do. I love leftovers. Who is that? Sam or is that Jamila?
Yes.
Sam.
So
Sam.
I
we're
made
having
a
leftovers.
roast chicken breast and sweet potatoes and zucchini.
Wow, you guys are all killing it. I have no idea what awaits me upstairs. And so if dinner's ready, great. If not, I'm just going to say, let's do takeout. I have no idea what's going on. I've been in the basement for the last 3 hours. So, well, guys, Sam, enjoy the leftovers. Everybody, Lee, travel home safely. Everybody, I appreciate you being on the call. If you have any questions about the Capitalize Your Best program, reach out. anytime you have questions about marketing or sales or anything, I'll be glad to help. I appreciate you all being here a ton. Any last things? All right, gang, enjoy your evening. I appreciate it a ton, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye, everybody.
You, bye-bye.
Bye.